Greetings. This is Brian Terrian here from the Disability Digest. I don't know if my camera's set up properly or not. Hopefully it is. And welcome to our YouTube live event today. We have Philip Price back with us. Thank you, Philip, for coming out today. Philip's got some questions that he's been asked about doctors treatments, exams that people are faced with. So we're going to cover that and answer any questions that you might have. And as always, Miss Jam is with us. Thank you, Jam, for joining.
Hi, everybody.
We hope you're all very well out there, and thank you for joining today. So if you're new here listening, thank you, welcome. We do these events most Wednesdays unless there is some disruption to my schedule. And so we encourage you to like and subscribe if you enjoy the work that we do, which we hope that you do. So today, as we go through the event, you're welcome to enter some questions. We see that there's already been a question entered about bartering, which was a great question. I do have the answer for that one that we will cover in today's program. So, are we ready to roll with doctors, treatments, exams, etc.?
Yes. Let's
Good.
do it.
I did in advance of this, so there was a question that Raymond had put in the YouTube comments, and it was, how do I get my VA limitations placed in my medical records? Excellent question. That's something we're going to cover. So just some general information for those of you out there. Some of you maybe, anywhere from working full-time and just learning about the process to thinking about applying, applied and waiting, applied and denied, and some of you are approved. So this information is broad-based because it's treatment and it applies to those of you that are going to be getting your benefits. But once you're approved, you're not off the hook because about 20% of disability recipients are reviewed annually. So this applies to everyone. So with Social Security, they require medical evidence for you to get your benefits and keep your benefits. And that medical evidence, is about going to the doctors. It could be about getting an exam from a doctor. But the medical evidence to be eligible for Social Security must provide, confirmation that your limitations after your treatment prevent you from doing any work. So to support that, you do need to have visits, medical tests, reports, hospital visits, clinics from reliable sources, medical sources. So Social Security, when they look at medical sources, not all treating sources are considered to be equal. They put a different weight, meaning a different value on different treating resources, with your primary care usually having the most influence and the most weight. Some other factors that are considered in this is the frequency of treatment and the longevity of the treatment that you've had. So if you just started seeing a doctor and they developed an opinion, well, that's great, but it's not going to have as much weight as somebody that you had a long-standing relationship with. So, people are faced with some, really difficult situations when they're trying to get approved or keep their benefits. If they're in a working relationship with a doctor that's not doing what they would like them to do, so do they pivot and go on and try somebody else or stay? So it's one of those things that I don't have the answer. You need to make the decision on your own. So that's some of the information. Once you're approved, as we're going to talk about today, you could be subject to a consultative exam again through your continuing disability review. So the point is that to get your benefits and keep your benefits, you want to have a really good relationship with your doctors and stay in treatment for all of them. All right. So Philip, Where would you like to start?
Well, first thing is most of the questions I get in the Facebook group are, why do I have to? What is the reasoning that Social Security is wanting me to do a consultative examination? If I have
Okay,
my own doctors, why are they sending me to their doctors? What's their
right,
reason?
right. Um, my reason is just my from the networking groups that I work in that do this same work. I don't know of any like printed regulation that supports this, but there there's been like that whole Eric Kahn thing. Literally, his name was Eric Kahn, C-O-N, and he was a Social Security lawyer that like conned Social Security out of gargantuan amounts of money because he had regular doctors and regular practices that were cooking up some fake medical records. So, my take is, and others, why they do this is to validate that your treatment and your conditions and your limitations are the real deal. Um, so that's the
One,
that's yeah,
could it also be that there's inadequate medical evidence in your medical records and from your doctors? Could they be
sure.
requesting other um, tests, exams from their doctors that are not in yours?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And think about it this way. There are people out there that geographically don't have the ability to access treatment or financially are not able to. So Social Security will um, send somebody for an exam to get a benchmark on what's going on. So,
Okay.
yep.
And the other uh, doesn't come across a lot, but how important is it that um, I keep that appointment? If they request that I go see these doctors, how important is it that I go?
Yeah, 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 definitely. That's another great question. I just want to give a shout out to everybody in the group. Philip has some great questions, and he's been doing this work here as an advocate, helping people for like 5 years, and he runs a very active Facebook group. So he's he's in and out of this a couple hours a day. He's also a disability recipient, so these are super questions, and I thank you for it. So I have known this for people that we have worked directly with, that we had one instance where an individual didn't go to the exam. And they didn't go to the exam because they didn't receive the notice for the exam. And we didn't receive the notice. A disability representative receives a copy of the notice as well as the applicant. And that individual was denied. So in that situation, one could say, all right, well, didn't go to the exam, supposed to go to the exam so that we can confirm that these treatment limitations are legit, denied. Right. So I don't know if that happens in every case, but it happened in that one.
And how do they send you that notice? Do they call you? They send you a letter? Text
Uh,
message? Email?
it's mail. It's traditional mail. All of the case related activity is just in traditional mail format
Yeah.
now. Yeah. Um,
And I guess a good tip for everybody out there is if you're filing for disability, you really need to watch. You need to have a good address, one
yes.
thing. You need to
Mm-hmm.
watch your mail consistently
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to miss these notifications. If
Mm-hmm.
you do, then you know that's not their fault. They sent it. So
Exactly. It's
you
a
need to
business
keep that.
transaction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the phone, Philip? People, right? Some people don't have their phone. They've got their voicemail
Right.
not set up. They're not taking calls. They're blocking calls.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of the people that are out there going through the disability process, they're, and I was one of them, dodging the bill collectors because you're not working and you don't have money, so you don't answer the phone.
Right.
And, you know, they have that problem. And if they miss that phone call from Social Security, then that could be a big problem for them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Good
Uh,
communication protocol.
so when you go to these uh, uh, CEs, is it wise to try to take somebody with you, or should you go by yourself?
Right. The best results that we have found is bringing someone with you, which is a good practice for a lot doctor's appointments in general. If you don't feel well and you're fatigued or your condition causes cognitive limitations. But in this instance, it's a bit different. And the reason is, if you in understanding these exams from Social Security, these individuals that do the exams are not paid a lot of money. And oftentimes they will do these as like fillers. They might do them on a Saturday, and they might do 30 of them on a Saturday, and they receive maybe $165 each. And I've done different videos on these companies getting busted for doing bogus exams. So I'm not saying that everybody is like that does these exams for Social Security, but you need to think about it from their mindset. This is not a traditional appointment. And these doctors do these, on a get them in, get them out type mentality. So you need to make sure that what is done in that exam is properly reported, and what should be done in that exam is actually done. So there was a group in the Midwest that was doing these exams, and they were using a boilerplate report back to Social Security. So like everybody had pretty much the same conditions
Yeah.
with a few modifications. I mean, it's just blatant fraud. So
Yeah.
yes, bring somebody with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good tip to always try to have somebody there with you and ask questions. And one of the other questions I get is, what is there anything I need to take with me other than somebody to take notes or ask questions? Should I take
Sure.
medical records with me? Should I take, if I'm uh, claiming that I have trouble walking and have to use a cane, do I need to take a walk
Yep.
my cane with me? Or are those things I need to do?
I'm going to go with yes and yes with a bit more detail. If you go into that exam, let's do it this way. Let's say you go into the exam with no medical records. And then you have 5 conditions. And then it is the examiner's responsibility to confirm that you have those 5 conditions. All right. Are they going to do it or not? Are they going to check your eyes, your ears, your throat, and your chest and say, okay, you're out? Did they do it all? Don't know. But if you come in with your medical records, and you don't need to bring in like a big wheelbarrow full of them, you can bring in medical records or a summary of your medical records that say, okay, these are my conditions, this is my treatment history, and this is what I should be evaluated on. That's what you want to accomplish. If you can do that with a summary or a minimal amount of records, that would be ideal, because then you think about it this way. The examiner's like, oh, well, gosh, now I know this person's got these conditions. They brought him in. I got to check him out and evaluate him. Because if you present the 5 conditions and they don't evaluate all 5 of them, well, then, okay, that's in your favor. If your person that you bring with you is either recording this or taking very good notes.
Yeah. So I'm one of those persons that would take in the wheelbarrow full of stuff and dump it in his lap and say, here's
Yeah,
what's wrong.
yeah. Yeah, I'm good for 3
So,
hours. Let's get it
yeah.
on.
Well, considering that, what the other question I get is how long should I expect these exams to take? Be it a physical or a mental evaluation. How long
Yeah,
should I expect to be there?
I really don't have I don't have an answer
I
on how.
can I can attest to what mine was
Yeah,
and how uh, minuscule it was, and
right.
it wasn't even related to my condition. I mean, I'm legally blind, and they sent me to a psychiatrist. Um, he did do a chart, you know, the eye exam, the chart that you look at, the letter
Yeah.
E and the A and all that stuff. He had me look at that for about 2 seconds. I couldn't even see the chart, but then the rest of the examination was not even related to that.
Yeah.
And it lasted, the whole examination lasted about 15 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's pretty consistent. We receive a video and audio files. Now that I think back on it, I don't have exact date on it, but I would say it's pretty consistent with a traditional doctor's appointment,
Uh,
which used to be 12 minutes, but now apparently it's 8. Um,
wow.
yeah.
So, in other words, you're not going to get the full meal deal at one of these examinations. It's gonna be pretty limited. And I guess what I'm getting at is you probably need to prepare with your doctors, explain to them and convey to them what your um, conditions are, your limitations. If you can lay that groundwork with them, then your medical records are really going to reflect what your conditions are, your
Um,
limitations.
right. And that'll trump anything because that's back to the weighted um, evidence, right? So, yeah, I mean, these exams, not everybody goes to them. I think the statistics from the budget, the most recent budget is 72% of the people. And so are we, it sounds like we're kind of pivoting into another category of getting limitations in medical records. Is that right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's
Okay.
another area that we need to hit on is
Okay.
how we need to prepare um, your physicians, like I said, laying your groundwork when you get started so
Sure.
that it
Sure.
reflects your conditions.
Okay. Two things before we get on to that. One is we have a list from our disability approval course of um, what you need to do for these exams. And even if you're approved, if you go through if you go through a CDR and it is possible that they could send you for an evaluation as part of the process. So those are yours today. I'll put them in the chat when we're done here. Jim, I already have it up on the screen, so no worries. And for those of you that are joined us in progress, thanks and welcome. We're going through the CE or IME, independent medical exam. Now we're going to talk about working relationships with doctors, but we do plan on taking some time to answer some questions that you may have for Philip or I or maybe Jam. So you can enter those into the chat. Okay, so
I do have one other question about CEs.
yeah.
Is it normal practice for them to schedule these appointments um, in your geographical area, or can they occur outside of your geographical area?
I have not known them to be outside of the area, Philip.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't.
Reason I ask is I have had a member of mine that actually had to travel outside of the state to go to the CE.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
he had to pay for the he had to pay for the flight to go to the CE outside of the state. And
That's interesting.
he had requested from the examiner that it was too far to go. He couldn't afford it for one thing, and they refused. He had to keep the appointment. He had to pay for their plane flight ticket and go out of state to the CE.
Was his case located where the exam was, or was his case located like where he had to fly from?
Well, what had happened, he had applied in one state,
Oh, okay.
moved to another state,
Okay.
and he was denied and
Mm-hmm.
appealed, and then they scheduled a CE for him, and he had to go back to that state to do the examination.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's a unique situation. Typically, they're in the same area. One thing that I have, I learned this from a member, Todd, is they'll send you an exam notice, and then they'll send you another one rescheduling it. So you need to, again, like Philip said, watch your mail, make sure you get the right time, you get the second notice type thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All
I know
right.
a lot of my Facebook group out there will uh, complain about getting a letter that's 2 to 3 weeks old and they didn't have time. Well, it's just because you didn't watch the mail. You didn't get out
Well,
there.
okay. They could be right. I have known situations where the exam has been a letter received after the date that it was scheduled.
Yeah.
That has happened.
Our
Yeah.
mail system isn't the greatest.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Things have been known to get lost. So
right. Right.
uh
Okay. So limitations in medical records. Let's do it.
yeah.
Where do you want to
So
start?
what what are some good I know I had talked about this a couple of years ago about when you go to your doctors, your personal general practitioners that you see on a regular basis, taking bullet points, or just write something down as it occurs during the day to you as a limitation that you can write it down, take it to your doctor, and show them. Is that something that is a good practice to do?
Well, yes, it is, but let's address it this way. Let's remember what you need to prove to get your benefits and keep your benefits, which is that, and Jam did a beautiful graph on this, right? And some of our other presentations, is that
Right.
you have conditions and they're being treated. And despite that treatment, you have limitations. So if you are going to your doctors and you're saying, and your doctor's notes say that you have degenerative disc disease, you have arthritis, and, you've got depression, right? But there isn't any marked limitations from that. That doesn't communicate to Social Security your limitations on working. But if in your notes, the medical notes say, patient is not able to stand for more than 15 minutes, sit for more than 20 minutes, can't lift more than 8 pounds, and has severe depression that enables the individual to, 5 days out of the month can't get out of bed, sometimes doesn't shower. Those types of things are in your medical records that are very definitive. What that makes it easy for Social Security to do is to come through and see that you've checked all the boxes. You're being treated. You've got the limitations that are clearly marked, and those limitations are severe enough to prevent you from working. So if you're approved, it's disability income insurance. If you're not approved, it's one of the best things that you can do, even if you're working full time, to put a lock on your disability benefits. So your point is spot on, Philip. Write them down, bring them in. So let's stay on that point for a minute, right? I don't know if has anybody in your group or Jim, have you heard of anybody that has had any challenges with getting these into the medical records, getting the limitations?
Yes, most of them don't feel like a connection with their primary care.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's it for me.
all right.
It's and I've
Yeah,
come
and they don't
across
know
that.
how.
Yeah, I've come across that also with, well, myself, my personal experience, and people that I've talked with over the years, that unfortunately some of the doctors that you deal with are, I don't want to call them egotistical, but when you're trying to explain to them what you're feeling, it's like you're talking to um, a brick wall. They're not really listening to you.
Right. Right.
They've got the education, they know what's wrong with you, and
Sure.
they're the ones treating you, and you're trying to tell them what's wrong with you, and they're not really listening to you. So how do you convey that to them?
Right.
I get that question
Right.
a lot. How do you explain to your doctor what's your problem or what
And
your
Right.
limitations?
yeah,
Yeah, right. Because you go in, you have very limited time with your doctor.
Yeah.
Sure.
They're usually in a hurry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The 8 minutes. So the way that has worked is you make it really simple and you communicate directly. So I have a blank piece of paper here. But if you have your 5 limitations written down, just a short, concise statement: cannot sit for 15 minutes, can't stand for 10 minutes, not able to lift, need to take 3 naps a day. And these are other things that we've worked on in these events to help you understand what your limitations are. But make it really simple and just bring in one piece of paper and say, Doc, these go in my medical records. These are my current limitations from my journal. It's their responsibility because they're treating you, and their job is to make you better. Maybe it's not better enough to go back to work, but it's better. That's why you go see a doctor, to put these in the medical records. Now, they might scan it, or they might just put this in there. So then the purpose of you doing that is you want to get your limitations in the records, but you also ideally want to get better. Most people want to feel better. They don't want to, have their situations get worse. So this gives you a benchmark, and that's why you go see a doctor. So if a doctor disagrees with it, say, Doc, well, listen, you're treating me for these conditions to help me feel better. This is our benchmark. I am telling you what my limitations are. This is what we're working on. And when you have that approach, from my experience, I haven't received feedback that it has not worked.
I've also been in the conversation where they say, well, my doctor just doesn't want to
No,
cooperate.
no, they don't.
Yeah.
doesn't want to give me anything, doesn't want to write nothing down, doesn't want to sign anything. What do I do? How do I approach that problem?
Well, you have a tough decision to make, because if you have a doctor that's not going to work with you to recognize what your limitations are, you have to make a decision. I mean, do you want to keep them? Is that somebody that you want to work with? So, I mean, it's going to be tough, because listen, folks, if you just have your conditions in there and they're not marked properly, it's really difficult. And a classic example of this is the Veterans Administration. So in the VA, they document things different than civilian doctors do. And I don't know how many veterans we have that we're helping right now that are rated 100% disabled with the VA, which is the highest possible rating. But still, they have a real challenge getting approved for disability. So it's super important if you want to get and keep your disability income. You have to keep that in mind. If it was me, I would change. I would find somebody that I can work with that's going to meet my needs, understand my situation, document my limitations, and work with me on them.
Yeah.
Why else would you go see them?
Yeah.
Right.
The other side of the coin is also you have to ask. You'll never know unless you ask them. A lot of
Right.
people are intimidated
Yep.
by a doctor, and they're scared to ask them if they would help, further help.
Yes, exactly. Amen to
Won't know.
that.
Won't know unless you ask.
That's true. That
Yeah.
is totally true. So that's good. So let's see. We have anything else on this topic, or we want to hit some questions?
Do some questions.
All right. Jam, while you're going through the questions, I'm going to share my screen and address the barter question that came up.
Sure.
And the question, I don't remember it exactly, but it was something like, I am receiving rent on a barter relationship. How does that work with the substantial gainful activity, making money, keeping benefits? So the answer is here on the IRS page, and it's how the IRS views that transaction of bartering relative to income. So here it says you must include gross income in the year of the receipt of the fair market value of the goods and services received from bartering. So you would need to, in that situation, or should I say, put a value, fair market value on what that rental barter is, and that counts as income. So for an example would be, if you're receiving, $600 a month in a barter relationship for rent, somewhere in that range, then that's what you would need to include. So I'll put this in the chat. That was an excellent question. Put it right here. And then I also am going to include, while I'm in the posting, exam for your independent medical exam. I'll put the tips in here as well. So 127 of you out there. Fantastic. Thanks for joining. All right, Miss Jam, you ready to hit it?
All right. Here's one. How much should I take out of my SSDI and federal taxes?
Taxes, I'm not a tax guy. I know that you're subject to taxes, and I forget what it is, something to do with 25,000 single, 32 married. It's on your award letter. But I would, one, look at your award letter if you're newly approved, because it's on there. And then two, I would get with a tax person, because I'm not a tax expert. Unless, Philip, you have anything else on this?
No, sir. I don't touch that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Just you do want to pay your taxes.
Yeah.
Please.
Exactly.
Right. All right. What if I get hurt worse than when I started SSDI? I broke my ankle and I had 5 surgeries on it and still can't walk. And can I get more money?
Yeah. So Social Security is you're either approved or you're not. There isn't an increased pay rate for severity. like there is in other countries. Like I'm in the Philippines now visiting JAM, and they have Social Security here, a version of it, and they have a different system where there is like increased payment for severity, similar to that, but not in the US.
All right. Okay. Here's one from Anthony Burton. I'm 100% disabled. TDIU. Does that help?
Um,
And follow-up question. Do you have an exam when filing for SSDI retired Navy 100% disabled?
okay, so the 100%, I would say it helps, but it is a real challenge getting veterans approved for Social Security disability benefits. Not just with us, it's with others. And here's the things that you're faced with that are a challenge. The 100% rating that you have there, it's not a direct correlation to getting approved for Social Security. It's different. You have to prove that you can't work any job or the work that you've done. The biggest challenge is the medical records, and the medical records, as I mentioned, in communicating the limitations, that's difficult. And the typical veteran mentality is that they are taught to serve or continue to be in the game and play hurt. So they're trained not to clearly communicate their limitations. So the medical records oftentimes don't have limitations that are in there. So those are two of the real challenges. And another one, believe it or not, is a lot of the judges that Social Security has are ex-vets. And you would think that that would be helpful for veterans, but I have, and others that do this work, known of situations where judges hear a case of a veteran and they're like, listen, I'm 100% rated. I'm up here doing this deal. I'm working. You should be working, right? So those are what you're faced against. Doesn't mean you can't get them approved. Of course you can, but you just, it's like you actually have to put in an extra effort as a veteran.
All right. Here's one. How much of my doctor's notes do I have to provide to SSDI office?
If you're applying for disability, you can provide your medical records, but the responsibility is on Social Security to request the medical records from your doctors. And in my personal preference, I would prefer that Social Security requests the medical records so that they're responsible for getting the records and all of the files. Because if you bring in a file to Social Security, let's say it's 100 pages, maybe they only scan 80 and 20 get screwed up, then they could miss something important. So that would be my preference. Put the responsibility on them. Make sure that all of those records end up in the file. If you use a representative, they can find out that that's done. If you're not using a representative, then it's up to you to contact your case manager to find out that all those medical records are in there.
Okay. My doctors seem to be pushing for surgery injections or else.
Is there a question there?
Statement.
All right. I mean,
That may be subject to compliance for treatment.
yeah, it could be. I guess now that I think it through, if you are faced with something like this surgery or a medication, or maybe you're sent to physical therapy and you try it and it just hurts like hell and you don't want to do it anymore, then the best way to approach this is to have an explanation or reach an agreement with your doctor as to why you don't want to do this, and have it documented. Like you don't want to take a medication because it makes you tired and drowsy and you can't communicate for like 3 hours, something like that. You don't want to do the surgery because maybe there's a 1% chance it'll make you better. And that's really low odds for a lot of discomfort.
All right. I got a short form in February. CDR, I get back benefits. I accidentally gave my social security number instead of my deceased parents. Could that be a problem? I have not heard anything from Social Security yet.
Wow.
All right.
That's a heavy one. That could be a problem. You gave some wrong information. I don't, it sounds like you could correct that though by reaching out to them. Yeah.
Yeah. I am 77 and getting regular Social Security. I am unable to work because of severe health issues. Can I still get disability?
Yeah, so the cutoff for Social Security is at your full retirement age, which for most now is 67. So that would be no.
How much influence does the state examination carry? Concerned doctor may be anti-applicant. Should I take some of my medical records to this physical examination appointment?
Okay. So we addressed the medical records earlier in this
Right.
presentation. I'm
Even
trying
with
to,
a
pardon me?
doctor. Even for the part of doctor anti-applicant thing.
Yeah, so the real answer that I'm searching for is what is the, like, how important is this? Right? That seems to be the focus of the question from my perspective. Is that right?
All right.
Yeah. It's not going to make, well, it could make or break a case, I guess, but it's rare that it's going to do that. It'll definitely have an impact, but the work and the questions that Philip asked and the answers that we provided, if you follow those steps, then you're going to be able to control the outcome of that exam, which is what you want to do. You just don't want it to go in the wrong direction. Go in there, have it be a 6-minute exam, have a similar experience like Philip, where they evaluated you for something that you don't even have, like why you were even there, Philip. I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, I've heard a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
All right. The doctor I was sent to wanted to verify I had the scars on my back that would support a fused back surgery with graft site. Also, that my toes were bent as X-rays showed, but most still deny first time.
Well, that's interesting. So that's a good example of the exam and what the purpose of it for is to validate those. Unfortunately, the outcome of your initial application was not favorable. But if you need help with that, come on over here, the Disability Digest. If you haven't already, we've got that disability approval course, which, by the way, folks, we have a brand new version of that that's going to be coming out within the next 10 days or so, of the disability approval course. It's going to have more information, step by step, from initial, applied and waiting for a decision, applied and denied, hearing, what to do at each specific step with more detailed information and condition specific information. So for example, if you have diabetes or some brain health conditions or musculoskeletal issues with your back or your neck, you'll have that partnered with the actual tactical steps to do. So we look forward to getting that out there.
Okay, I live in Brooklyn, New York, and the exam was done at clinic only for disability recipients that are applying for Social Security.
Okay.
Uh, Okay. The SSD doctor exam consistent of eye, psychologist, physical. I had back surgery, so they took an X-ray.
All right. If
That's it.
for those of you that are commenting on it, I'm wondering if well, would you be willing to put in like how long was your exam? How many minutes?
Oh, I got one for that question here. Let me
Mm-hmm.
just 12 minutes.
12 minutes.
Yeah. I brought my records in, but they didn't want to review them nor see them. But again, my exam was 12 minutes from Stephen.
Yep. One point we didn't cover with the exam is to look at the outcome of it and make sure it's consistent. That's really could be arguably the most important. And you can get access to that by contacting Social Security. Say, listen, I'd like to see the follow-up from my exam. Make sure it's consistent. Jam, you're doing a great job as always.
Thank you, guys. I was approved for SSDI after being denied twice. It took me 6 years to even get that far. That was 6.5 years ago, and I believe they have improved with shorter times.
Well,
Statements.
I appreciate your optimism with shorter times, but the time that I've been doing this since 2006, some of the longest wait times are like right now, unfortunately, especially if you live in the area that Philip does in that area. It's got like the longest wait in the country. Second is Florida.
All right. Can you ask for a copy of medical examination for your personal records? You answered that question.
Yes, I did.
When you receive your CDR, are you only to give the last 12 months of treatment and a new updated limitations from, sorry, can't remember the technical name of that form, filled out by the doctor?
So with this,
I believe the doctor support forms.
right. So for the CDR, I don't know what the time frame is that they are requesting medical records for. If anybody else has had their CDR recently, I know they asked for dates. They're asking for treatment dates through certain periods, but I don't know the answer to the medical record question.
All right, here's one from Patrick Smith. I was told to bring my bottles of meds and forms filled out for his IMA. The doctor didn't even look at them, and he was told by IMA group, and they told him they would have his records. And his notes was, got to doctor at 10 to 9 a.m., 15 minutes filling out forms, 10 minutes triage eye test, waited for about 10 minutes for doctor, and doctor asked questions about hospital and spent maybe 10 to 15 minutes on exam. So did some pressure tests on pushing knees and gripping little rubber hammer, wrote stuff down.
This is good. Did anybody out there wonder if they brought people with them? How many went alone? Curious about that. Yep.
Yeah, and that was Patrick Smith. He's in New York, and he's on his third adjudicator at the reconsideration stage.
All right.
Right. If I get denied from my review, do they just drop me down to SSI?
If you qualify for SSI, that would be a possibility. Yeah. Yep.
Right. Hello, I have an appointment with disability doctor since my primary care physician has not responded to two requests from the DDS examiner. What can I expect from the disability doctor visit?
Oh, well, we've been through that in the earlier part of this, and the replay will be available afterwards. It's unfortunate that your primary care didn't respond. That would have been ideal.
All right.
Yeah, now they're gonna have to base all the decision off of one doctor that doesn't really know you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does SSI give you time to find a job if you get denied, or do they just throw you off?
Well, you have a couple of options with your CDR. You can appeal it and keep your payment going. Or you can appeal it and not keep your payment going. So the decision that you need to make is, if you keep your payment going and you lose it, then you're going to owe that money back. All right. So it's kind of, right, how strong is it? So do they give you time to find a job? I don't know how, depends how you look at that. You can keep your check, but you got to win, or you're going to owe them the money back.
Okay. Is it true that addicts are paid more on disability? This is an interesting question.
Yeah, no. Your check
Um,
amount is based on
Work
that's
history, right?
an interesting question, actually. It's based on your work history. So the amount of time that you have worked or money that you've earned and the tax that you've paid is what determines your check.
All right. Could you please differentiate the disability between EDD and SS?
I don't
What's
know.
that? I didn't.
EDD?
Yeah, EDD and SS.
EDD. EDD. I don't know. The only EDD I know is erectile dysfunction, or maybe that's just ED. I don't think they're referring to that.
Right. I fully meet every criteria for listing condition 12.5, trauma and stressor related disorder. I have excellent treatment records without psych hospitalizations or suicide attempts. Will I get denied?
Oh boy, the $1 million question.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, don't know. I've had people with stage 4 cancer be denied, not get approved, and pass away. So it's really, meeting a listing is one thing, but you have to really, you've got to get everything right, communicate it, make sure those limitations are in your medical records, the severity's documented. There's a bunch to it. Sounds like you've done some research. That's great.
Right. On this short form, if one says yes to having had surgery, would that trigger the long form?
Don't know.
Right. I love my doctor, but no doctor at their facility will fill out or sign forms for any disability.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So just pause on that for a minute if we could. Then your strategy, as always, is communicating your limitations. Like in California, I think it's Kaiser, big, massive medical organization. None of those doctors will do anything extra. So anybody, when they say Kaiser, that's what you're dealing with. So get your notes, bring them in, follow the directions, get your limitations in the records.
All right. Thank you for the comments on veterans get approved. Now it makes sense why they are giving such a hard time. Limitations, waiting on an administrative law judge.
Yeah.
From Norman
Well,
Brown.
one more thing on veterans that I just thought of is veterans have, if you go to the VA for treatment and you have a primary care, you could have a different primary care some of the time, maybe all the time. So you're in a situation where you're subject to having a doctor that doesn't intimately know you, like I go to John Miller all the time. And that's another challenge that veterans are faced with. So,
Yeah, most of the veterans I speak with, after they have served, they just go to a veteran clinic and they just see whoever is available at that time.
yeah, yep. Yeah, I mean, it's a great service. And it's workable. You got to make sure that you catch it in time and work it. All right. We have any more, Jim? I can take a couple more. If there
Yeah, a
is.
couple more. Okay. My brother had to move back in with family right before he was scheduled for an evaluation. We had to move his file from Washington to California. What kind of delay should we expect?
Is this your contact, Philip?
It sounds like one of mine.
Yeah, it's difficult to know what, I don't know the wait times in those respective offices. I can speak to this though. I mean, if somebody is waiting for a hearing and they're waiting for a hearing in Des Moines, Iowa, and then they want to have it in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they're going to move it, then you can factor in, I do anyway, just an automatic 3 months for like the transition. And then you have to kind of blend that in with what the workflow is in that local office. And I don't have that data committed.
All right. Okay. Because I'm on Social Security, when I reach retirement age, will I be able to receive Social Security?
So are they a disability recipient now?
Right.
All right. So when you reach your full retirement age, for example, let's say that you're 62 and you're a disability recipient. When you reach full retirement age, 67, let's say, then the only thing that happens is your status changes with Social Security. You are now considered full retirement age. And there's actually some benefits to that because you're no longer considered a disability recipient. Your check amount again is the same. You don't have the income restrictions for earning, and you do not have, you're not subject to the independent medical exams because you're full retirement. You're just like got your check at 67.
Right. Are the CDR reviews always done at a medical facility?
Well, a CDR is a continuing disability review. That's what I know. And that starts with a paper transaction. You send a document or documents to fill out. Now, an independent medical exam, if that could be what you're referencing, that's typically done at some type of medical clinic. I don't know if you've heard, Philip, but I've known that these have been done like, I know members have reported that people have had to go to like a strip mall where they've set up a pop-up.
Well, the one I was telling you about, they sent me to, I had to go to a part of town that was not desirable. In the location, when I had to take a cab over there, was a Dairy Queen. And it was behind the Dairy Queen in a building, a 2-office building that was behind the Dairy Queen in the parking lot. And I had to go in the Dairy Queen and ask the people where this address was. And they just pointed back behind the Dairy Queen.
Oh, wow.
I walked into this place and I thought, are you kidding me?
Yeah, this is our government at work. Gotta love it.
And there was actually 5-gallon, I swear to God, there was 5-gallon buckets in the waiting room to set up.
Of ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, well.
Dairy Queen was using it for storage, and this guy was written it to do examinations.
Beautiful. So did you get some ice cream, Philip, when you were done your exam?
Yeah,
or what?
did you?
What'd you get? Did you get
I got a double Whopper fries.
I would too. Yeah. That's crazy. Behind the Dairy Queen.
Yeah, and you could tell this guy was, he just rented the place out, and this was on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hey, listen, if you're looking to do something extra, make some extra money, contact Social Security. Maybe you can do some independent medical exams, right?
Yeah.
Let's get a little pop-up going.
Get
Your
you a
local
nice
Dairy Queen.
dip coming while you're doing
All right, Jam. We good?
All right. Yes, I'm getting royalties for an invention. I don't do any work for it. Will that affect my SSDI?
Well, good for you. Royalties are not considered SGA. Was it 2 weeks ago, Jim? We did, yeah, 2 weeks ago we did
Yeah.
a live event. You can go back and look at it. But ultimately, it has to do with what the government tax code is on that type of income. So you're fine there.
Right. I heard that if you are denied, an attorney can ask for a judicial decision without a court date. I can't remember exact legal term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a statement.
It's called an on the record decision.
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay. What can a person do if their doctor has diagnosed them with something that they don't have? They didn't want anybody in the exam room with me.
So you have a bogus diagnosis, right?
All right. That's my understanding.
That's crazy. Yeah.
They wouldn't allow somebody in the exam with them. I've come across that too. I've
Yeah.
Suggested to my Facebook group that they take somebody to the exam with them, but I've gotten feedback where the doctors refuse to let them bring anybody in.
Yeah. Yeah. There is not a regulation that prevents an advocate going in. So when you're faced with those, you can ask the doctor, say, show me the regulation that supports that. So it's pretty standard practice. The only thing I can think of for somebody getting misdiagnosed, you can ask to have it corrected. I know people that have had other situations with their medical records where the severity hasn't been right, or they had a medication in there that shouldn't be. And you can ask to have it corrected. And if you have a challenge, you can get a second opinion, I guess, go to another doctor. So, Jam, I have time for one more question and then we're going to wrap. You have one more.
Maybe two, because there's a follow-up question from Bob. What was the video heading about royalties, please?
2 weeks ago, I think it was what income impacts or affects your benefits. It's under the live events.
Right.
So if you're on our YouTube channel, you're going to see regular videos, and then you'll see a live tab. Yeah. All right, we down to the last one.
Yeah. I was sent a letter, my condition improved and I was no longer disabled. I am in the appeal process. The several pre-existing count and the decision.
Pre-existing conditions to prove that you're disabled, I'm going to go with yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, let me read that back. I was sent a letter, my condition improved and I was no longer disabled and I am in the appeal process.
Okay. And the question is?
The several pre-existing count in the decision.
Well, when I hear pre-existing, Philip, feel free to chime in on this. I hear pre-existing. These are conditions that somebody's had that helped them get approved for disability. Now they're being evaluated and they're saying they're not severe enough and they are being taken off of benefits. Does that sound?
Sounds like they might have, his medical records may show that they've improved.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's no longer considered disabled.
Okay. Yeah. But there's pre-existing conditions. Is that what we're hung up on, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have kind of late now, but well, We do have a continuing disability review course, like how to prepare for it, how to survive it and get through it. If you're a member at the Disability Digest and you don't have it, you can request it. It's only released based on request. And that could help you. Also, if you really get hung up and you need legal support, you have access to that in there as well. So that's something that could help you out, especially if they're fighting you on it. That could be an issue. So I'm going to call it a wrap on that note. Philip, thank you for your questions, your contribution, coming out, always engaging. Great to have you. And for
Yeah.
those of you folks that are in Philip's Facebook group, shout out to you. Thank you for paying attention here. And as always, Jam, wonderful job. I thank you for your support.
Of course.
As well.
And thank you, Philip.
Thank you.
Right.
Day.
It is. And again, I hope you enjoyed the show. Subscribe, ring the bell, share this with somebody else. And if you're not a member, if we haven't heard from you in a while, we encourage you to visit us at the Disability Digest and update your membership or join us as a member. No charge, fill out an evaluation, and that allows us to get information to you that's specific to your needs. And we certainly appreciate you attending this, and can watch all the, I don't know, 400 and something videos that are out there, but a direct approach, customized approach is something that can save you some time and get you the best results. So till the next time, everybody, thanks again. Make it a wonderful day.
See y'all.
Thank you, guys. See you
Bye.
next week.